Okay, I have 6 o'clock, so I'm going to go ahead and get started. Everybody's time is very valuable, so we'll just go ahead and get rolling here. My name is Dan Quigley. I am the Vice President of Associations for Kirkpatrick Management. We'll talk a little bit about Kirkpatrick Management and what we do here, and then going to go ahead and let Chad talk about annual meetings, which is what you are here to see. Kirkpatrick Management is celebrating its 50th year next year, so we're probably going to have a nice little party for that. But family-owned, family-operated, still have, I think we have 6 Kirkpatricks working at the office here. We, if you haven't been to our headquarters, we're located in the Castleton area around 71st and Binford Boulevard. We also have a Greenwood office. The Greenwood office is moving. We're in the midst of buying a building on Madison Avenue, a big building. We could do board meetings down there. We're getting off of Main Street. That should be around the 1st of the year, but things are going very well at Kirkpatrick. We just do want to make sure, one of the things that all of your managers, and there's some managers on here listening tonight, but they're your first point of contact. They all have a regional manager, which have probably reached out to you. We do have a couple different things that you can do. We do have a customer care program. The customer care program is led by Kelly Soto, and she's probably reached out to a lot of you and kind of wanted to see how things are going. She'll do it about once a quarter and talk to you about how things are going, how's all the things besides just the CAM, as far as talking about the financials and your homeowners getting what they need out of Kirkpatrick. So her focus is board presidents, but the idea is we want to make sure it's an outreach and just to make sure that you guys know that we're thinking about you, and if you need anything, we'll get that pretty quickly. The other thing is I'm going to give you my cell phone number. You guys pay for my phone. Let's be honest. So I wouldn't, you guys, if you need me, call me. Your first point of contact is always going to be the CAM, but then there's always the regional managers. But if you can't get something done and you need somebody, call me. My phone number is 317-847-0016. I know Gwen's on here, Becky's on here. There's different people that have used it every once in a while. Hopefully I've been able to come through and at least get them to who they need to talk to. And that's kind of the idea. During the presentation tonight, the annual meeting, in the bottom of your screen, there is the chat box. If you want to ask questions, I will be answering some questions during the presentation, and then as well as Chad will be talking. We'll ask questions live to him, and then we'll also have a question and answer period at the end, just in case there's something coming up. But without talking anymore, I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to Chad Ertl. Chad Ertl is he's been with us, I think, 15 years at Kirkpatrick Management. He is a PCAM, which is the highest accreditation you can get for property managers, as far as association property managers, and he's a pro. So he's going to talk to you a little bit about annual meetings tonight, and just feel free to ask some questions down in the chat, and we'll we'll answer as many as we can, as fast as we can. Thank you all. Go ahead, Chad. Thank you.
Yes, thanks, Dan, and thank you everybody for taking time out of your busy schedules to learn a little bit more about annual meetings. And I'll let you determine after this is over if I'm a pro or not, but I'm going to do the best I can. And my clicker's not working. Hang on, folks.
You want me to come in there, Chad, and just beep? Beep. Next one. There you go. You're getting there.
All right, back on track. Sorry about that. So I think we can all relate to Gene Wilder's comment here that some members of the association will simply come to the annual meeting to complain about happenings in the neighborhood when they haven't taken the time to come to any other HOA events or any other HOA meetings. I think everyone on this webinar has dealt with that and is familiar with it, but just be prepared for that at your annual meetings. So the annual meeting itself is simply the legal obligation of the board to hold a meeting for the membership, to inform the membership generally what's going on with the association. It's not working again. I don't know what's going on with this, Dan. Okay, sorry about that again, folks. So when you're preparing for the meeting, you'll want to read your documents and figure out, first of all, when the meeting is going to be and where it needs to be. Some documents are very specific on when the meeting needs to be held, and it will state, you know, the annual meeting needs to be held on the 2nd February at 7 o'clock of every calendar year. Some others, when they're just somewhat specific, state that they'll need to, you know, be held in November or December of each year, and some are not specific at all. And it pretty much leaves it open to the board to decide when they're going to have the annual meeting. Where you're going to have the meeting may also depend on your bylaws. Some bylaws will state that a meeting needs to be held in the county in which the neighborhood resides. So you'll need to check your documents, get with your CAM, will certainly help, but it needs to be a suitable place. We use churches, schools. We've used the warehouse at KMC headquarters. So you just need to figure out where it's going to be and what specifics go along with that. You know, how do you get into the building? Is there somebody there that's going to set up the room for you and take it down for you? You just need to do, you know, a little homework on where the meeting is going to be and how it's going to go. I'm sorry, everybody. I will try it one more time, and then I'm going to have to leave it on this screen. Along with being prepared, again, you'll need to, on the day of the meeting, the board will want to get there a little bit early. We recommend maybe even 30 minutes, depending on the setup time and what needs to be done. The CAM will help you plan ahead, but you might want to work with your CAM as well. You know, what equipment do you need? Do you need a projector, microphone, podium? Obviously, this is going to depend on how big your association is and how many people will be attending. But these are all things to think about prior to the meeting. The CAM is going to bring sign-in sheets, agenda, ballots if needed, any handouts, pens. Really, we'll have extra copies of what goes out in the mailer. The board should be prepared to sit in the front. You're the leaders of the association. You should sit in a way that you can be heard and seen by everybody in the room. You'll want to decide who's going to run the meeting. Of course, best practice is the president or the vice president. You're the leader of the board. The association is looking to you as that leader to let them know what's going on with the association and their money. So how can we help? We'd be happy to open and close the meeting. I've got a pretty big whistle that I've used before to calm an excited crowd. We can sign in the members as they arrive. We do that all the time. If you would like your CAM to perform another function, you know, maybe have them sit with you at the front table and participate in the meeting. We have additional staff that can help sign people in if needed, no matter the size of the association. If you have 1,500 members, we can have 3, 4, 5 people come and help with your annual meeting. It's really whatever you're comfortable with. and how you want us to help. We can help maintain order. However, we are not police or security. So if you do have a contentious matter or a troubled homeowner that's going to come to the meeting, and you know there's going to be an issue, we highly recommend having security or police in the crowd. Just you never know these days. Just be safe. And like I said previously, we will bring extra copies of all items contained in your mailer. So quorum. What is quorum? Why do you need it? How does that relate to your annual meeting? Quorum is the percentage that your documents, percentage of owners attending the meeting in your documents to have a legal meeting. I've seen quorum at 10%. I've seen it at 75%. Essentially, if you have a quorum of 10% and you have 100 houses or 100 condos, you'll need at least 10 people to show up in person or proxy to have a legal meeting. So we can try to get quorum a couple different ways. This is basically a way to collect proxies. We can send out email blasts. You can put up community signs at the entrances announcing the meeting. If you're really bold, you can go door to door. And you could also advertise the meeting on social media. As a company, we don't participate in social media, but if you have a board member or member of the association that has, say, a Facebook page, it's a good idea to post that on there. And with the email blasts, I would do it often. We'll talk a little bit more about the email blast when we talk about proxies. Another way to get people to attend your meeting, since apathy just seems to be increasing year after year, bribe them. Well, have food and drinks at the meeting. Some people don't come because they don't have a sitter. Well, get a bunch of pizza so the kids can have dinner and they can still attend the meeting. But you really need to be as creative as you can to try to get as many people to attend, again, either in person or by proxy. So what if you don't meet quorum? If you don't meet quorum, no official business can be conducted. You can't elect directors. You can't vote on a budget if you need to. That's why quorum is so important. There are a couple bylaws, 9 out of 10, if not 95 out of 100 bylaws account for this not being able to achieve quorum. They do it for a couple different things, mainly the directors and the budgets. So if you don't meet quorum, you might wonder how the board gets elected. Well, at this point they don't. If there's no quorum, then most documents state that directors at that point are able to appoint directors for any vacancies, and then they would be up for election at the next annual meeting. If your budget does need to be approved by the membership and you do not have quorum, most bylaws state that a temporary budget may be put into place, but it may not be more than 110% of the previously approved budget. I have seen that as high as 120%, but typically it's 110%. But I don't think I've ever had any budgets that needed membership approval that increased 10% year after year. That's a pretty big hike. At that point, if there's no items to vote on in any other items, you don't need to hold another meeting. That's going to be up to the board whether they want to do that or not. More meetings means another mailer. It's more expensive. So, but ultimately, it's going to be up to the board if they want to hold another meeting or not.
Hey, Chad, I've got a question from one of the board members at Heron Lake, and it's one that comes up quite often. It says, what if a homeowner shows up at the meeting, votes, and then leaves before the meeting starts? Is that counted as quorum?
Yeah, so they can show up if they don't have a proxy, I'll get to that later, but if anybody leaves, I always ask for a proxy before they leave in the first place. But if they show up, the quorum is counted at the beginning of the meeting. So if your meeting is at 7 and you attain quorum at 7:10, the meeting can start and everybody in the room could leave if they want to. As long as you have the quorum number at the beginning of the meeting, that's all that's needed.
Thank you, Chad.
Sure. So if you do have a subsequent meeting, you have to do another mailing. Proxies legally are valid for 180 days. So you want to hold on to those. What I always recommend is if you do not have quorum and you're going to have an additional meeting, have everybody that's in attendance sign a proxy. People will say that, oh, I'll come to the next meeting, but life happens. So I always get people to sign a proxy before they leave, just in case. I think that's a good practice to do. So the items needed for your annual meeting packet, obviously is going to be the notice, your proxy, and your budget. Those items should be must-haves. Nomination form and agenda are, in my opinion, should also be included, but that is up to the board. As you can see on this notice, the agenda itself is on the notice, so there may not be a standalone agenda. So this is an example of just a notice and agenda that are combined. Some optional items, prior year's annual meeting minutes, any documentation for other business you'd like to discuss, a year-to-date balance sheet. It's also a good time to send out your maintenance checklist or the architectural review form, just to save on postage. But again, you don't want to overwhelm your homeowners. We all know that most homeowners who get notices from the HOA, they don't get opened and they go straight into the trash. But those are just some optional items that you can include. So on your proxy, a proxy is a legal document assigning your vote to someone else. The language, since it is a legal document, the language does need to be fairly specific. You'll always need the name and address of the member giving the proxy, the name of the person empowered to exercise that proxy, the date on which the proxy is given to that person, the date of the meeting, that member's signature, and some legalese, basically giving their word that, yes, they do have the authority to assign their proxy to somebody else. And like I said before, proxies are good for 180 days. So you do have 6 months if you are going to have another meeting. The good thing now is that proxies can be signed electronically. So that's a good way to achieve quorum. You can send out blast emails with the proxy to get the right number that you need for quorum.
So Chad, talk a little bit about, if you can, would say that I signed a proxy and then I sent it in, but then show up at the meeting. You talk a little bit about that?
Sure. So if you turn in a proxy and show up at the meeting, that proxy is no longer valid. You are there in person, so you do not need to assign your vote to anybody else because you're there in proxy, you're there in person. So I typically set those aside in a separate spot because you will be cross-checking that with the sign-in sheet as it is. So you'll know if somebody was there and also turned in a proxy. There's also a voting proxy, which can be given if you need to approve the budget, if you have amendments that are being voted on. You can include the voting proxy or voting section on a proxy to let the person know who you're assigning that proxy to, how you want them to vote. So that can be helpful. It reassures people that, that they're giving their proxy to somebody, but they're still voting how they want to vote on any association matter. So on your annual meeting packet itself, you'll need to, most documents state that they need to be sent via USPS. So some documents actually prohibit them to be emailed, but in good practice, you can send them in the mail as well as email them to people. There's no need to send it certified. The law states that first class mail is deemed delivered, whether it gets lost in the mail or not. And on the notice requirement, that will be in the bylaws. Some notice requirements state that notice of the annual meeting needs to be no less than 10 days, no more than 60 days. Some say 30 days. You'll just need to read your bylaws to figure out what that notice requirement is. Obviously, your CAM is going to help with that, and the CAM is going to know what the notice requirement is as well. We need at least 5 business days to process a mailing. So keep that in mind if you require your CAM to send you and get approval for all of your material in that mailing packet. The notice legally goes by the date of the postmark, not the date that it gets received. So just keep that in mind.
And Chad, I did have a question back again on proxies, if I can. John Chipman is asking, because a lot of times there's only one spouse on a house. So there's the ownership question, but can a spouse vote if a home is owned by the other spouse without signing a proxy statement, or must the non-homeowner sign the proxy statement?
Deeded owner needs to sign the proxy. So if both people are on the deed, either or can assign that proxy to somebody else. But if they are not on the deed, and that's where that legal statement comes into effect, that you're signing saying I do have the authority. But if they're not on the deed, then they do not have the authority to assign a proxy to somebody else.
And so the Kirkpatrick sign-in sheet, or the sign-in sheet that your CAM's going to be working the front door with, should have the legal owner on there. So it's going to have the name, and if it is a Mr. and Mrs., or if it's Joan and Betty, or whatever, whoever owns the house, it's going to be on there. And so that's going to be they'll be able to follow through with that, and your CAM should help you on that. But it is something where you you would need something from them to make it legal, because there are times when the votes are challenged, and so that vote would be passed, would be thrown out if it didn't work, if we didn't have that. Thank you, Chad.
Yep, of course. So when you're opening the floor, when you're opening the meeting, try to set expectations. Let the people know that the board needs to conduct their official business. Then we can open the floor to a Q&A, and just remind people that hold their questions until the end. Promise them that yes, they will be heard. Just let us do our business, get that out of the way, and then we can do the Q&A. Unfortunately, some documents state that the board does not have to open up the floor to homeowners at the annual meeting. We certainly do not recommend this. We feel that the board should be as transparent as possible and answer as many questions to the homeowners about the operations of the association. Not as specific. Some documents state that, or not as strict. Some documents state that, yes, they can bring something up, but they need to notify the secretary X number of days prior to the meeting in order to get on the agenda. But again, your bylaws will state the process for how the Q&A is done. If you do have a ton of questions and time is running out, you're well into the second hour of the annual meeting, it might be time to start letting them know that they only have 3 minutes to talk, or do that at the beginning. Say, when we open it up for general discussion, you are limited to 3 minutes. Another thing to remind them of is that we're only there to discuss things that pertain to the entire community. The board's not going to talk about a neighbor to neighbor issue in front of everybody. It's just a waste of their time. If somebody does have an issue that they want to talk about, just let them know that, you know, hey, stick around after the meeting. I'd be happy to talk to you about it.
Chad, you know, there are times when, you know, you do get a quorum and the homeowners see that they've got a quorum, so they want to vote on different things. And I think what our policy, and I think the state policy, is to stick with, you can only really vote on what's on the agenda. Is that correct?
That's correct. That's the, you know, the legal notice that has gone out to the membership that, you know, this is what we're talking about. This is what we're voting on. Nothing can, some documents might be able to take motions from the floor, but typically they do not.
Thank you.
As you're getting going in your meeting, the treasurer is going to do the treasurer's report and the budget presentation. You know, we try to provide the boards with a detailed budget for them. And my only advice is just be prepared to answer any specific question on any general line item. I did an annual meeting a couple of years ago, and I had a guy ask me, you know, what's the $1,360 in 2018 for miscellaneous landscaping? And, you know, you might not be able to answer a question that in depth from, you know, 4 years ago, but just go in and know your budget, and people will ask questions. So just be prepared on that. So on the elections, you'll need to know if you can take elections from the floor, and how you're going to distribute your ballots, how they are going to be counted. Are they secret ballot? All of that is going to be explained in your bylaws. Ballots cannot be emailed in. They can only be done at the meeting. This ensures the validity of that ballot. And we always keep digital copies of your proxies, ballots, sign-in sheets. Legally, it's for 2 years, but we keep them for much longer than that. Here's an example of a ballot. This is a pretty plain Jane ballot. It's got the name of the association, the purpose of the meeting, the date of the meeting, and how many candidates you can vote for. The one thing that I would recommend adding to this ballot is under the signature line is to have a print name line. A lot of times signatures are illegible, and that allows you to assign that or account for that proxy appropriately. So if there's any other business, after the homeowners have been elected to the board, they need to stay after the meeting they can choose to elect officers at that point. But you'll just want to let the new board members know to stick around. And if it's a special meeting and the meeting is tabled, if they didn't have quorum, don't close the meeting. You'll want to essentially don't adjourn the meeting, because you need to have a subsequent meeting to get your business done. So just whatever you do in your minutes, don't put meeting adjourned. Then you're going to have to start over. For electronic meetings online, basically via Zoom, just know that the governor's executive orders during COVID have expired for non-for-profit organizations. So in order to have an annual meeting legally, it needs to be addressed in your governing documents. And I will tell you that most documents do not address virtual meetings. The board typically does have the power to amend your bylaws. So if you would like to have your annual meeting done via Zoom, I would highly recommend amending your bylaws to allow for that to happen. Should you do it anyway? That's up to you. Just know that the meeting's validity, excuse me, can be challenged by the members. Elections will be invalid. Any other voting will be invalid. So just keep that in mind. So difficult homeowners. We touched on this before. If you know there is going to be an issue, just have security ready. Be safe. But to help dilute the situation, allow homeowners to talk, and just let them know that we appreciate what you're saying, and I hear you. Just listen to them, and we'll be happy to help on that as well. But just be ready. In today's day and age, people are ready to fight, and just know that that's a possibility, and just be prepared for it. And finally, I'd like to close with a quick announcement. CAI is doing their annual golf outing. This one actually is from last year. This one will be the second annual golf outing. Email your CAM if you would like to come to this event. It's a good event to meet vendors and learn a little bit more about CAI, which is our industry's basically platform that we strive by.
Okay, Chad, we do have a couple questions. Actually, one of the questions is when a unit is owned by a business, name, or trust, how does someone show they are authorized legally to sign a proxy or vote in person?
That's a very good question. I'm not sure on that 100%. I would assume that it would need to be an officer of that corporation assigning their proxy to their local representative.
That's what I've done in the past. I got a larger place down in Jeffersonville that had something owned by a corporation, and they did have their CEO or a power of attorney from the corporation. Sometimes you get those small LLCs that own a bunch of different properties. Most of the time they don't come and vote anyway. And if they come, it's usually going to be the owners coming in person. But you do your best on that. And if it gets legally challenged, that's a little trickier, but that's really going to be up to you and the CAM to kind of decide that at the time. You'll kind of know a little bit of history, but let the person attend. If it's a very close vote, then you might have to take the vote and then get back to everybody. But I would legally, just use your best business judgment. I think that's a lot of what we do is that.
And I will say off topic a little bit. Something that a lot of associations are doing right now is passing rental cap amendments. They're getting that done at their annual meetings, so that could be something else you want to get on the agenda and vote, as these corporate buyers are becoming more prevalent and turning a lot of the houses in the neighborhoods into rentals.
All right, Keith Redding has a question that I have no flipping idea how to answer, but we'll have to get back to him. Maybe Chad, you know this. It says for a personal trust, is it the trust owner or the settler's trustee that can vote? And you know what, Keith, I'll have to get back to you on that. And let Chad, you know that one. That wasn't on our PCAM test.
I would think it'd be the trustee would be fine.
Yeah, we'll get back to you when we we'll kind of put something out. So we're going to get back to everybody with a tape of this, as well as the slides, so that you can in your free time review it all and go over it all, because I know that's what everybody wants to do. More Chad at all times. Sam, do you want to open it up for questions, or do we run the questions through Q&A?
We can do either. So we've got another question that just came in. But if you'd like me to have people unmute, I would be happy to do that.
Yeah, go ahead and let them unmute if you want. Let's go ahead and the question from Kurt is how do we need to do electronic proxies, i.e. email, Google Forms, KMC app? How's that being done these days?
I personally have just emailed them out. If a homeowner has Adobe, they'll have the ability to fill that form out and sign it electronically. You can also, the CAM can also turn that proxy into a fillable PDF that they can just email out to all the owners and get the electronic signatures that way. But it does not need to be a specific platform.
Okay, and Becky has a question for us. She's raised her hand, so it won't let me unmute everyone all at once. So if you do have a question you'd like to speak verbally, please raise your hand and I will unmute you to talk. So Becky, I'll go ahead and unmute you now.
Hey, Becky.
What happens if you don't get the state required 3 board members elected at the annual meeting? Maybe you just have 1 or 2 people for your entire board.
The board will function with 1 or 2 members. And those existing members, again, will have the ability to appoint somebody. But yeah, it's getting to be worst case scenario sometimes where you have 1 or 2 people who are on the board because nobody else wants to volunteer.
Even though I believe it's the Indiana nonprofit states that you have to have 3 to be a valid board.
I was not aware of that.
I believe so.
Okay, we'll look into that.
Becky, you have lots of people want to be on your board. Come on.
Yeah.
Who wouldn't want to do that? Whisper, it's a
Yeah.
beautiful place.
Yeah, if you could check that out, because I do believe it is under the Indiana Nonprofit Act that a board consists of 3 members.
Yeah, I don't know. You have to, somebody's going to have to go out there and bend some arms and just not force people, but just help people understand the gravity of the situation and the need to help.
And we'll have that answered. We'll figure that out tomorrow and answer that back for you, Becky. So we'll figure something out on that.
Okay, thank you.
If not, we'll make it up and then we'll make it look like it's good. No,
we don't want to do that.
No. I get that. We will find out. We've got some attorneys that can answer some questions for us.
Thank you.
No problem. Anybody else have any questions for Chad or tonight? Okay, so this is our last presentation for the year. Next year, we are going to have some more. We'll do some different topics. We will do webinars again. We are also going to do we're hoping to do a vendor day next year where we're going to have vendors, a vendor fair basically, where we're going to have a destination where we'll set up the vendors so people can come in and meet new vendors, see who we'll have a bunch of landscapers, a bunch of plumbers. We'll have some reserve study people, so you can meet some different vendors out there. Maybe we'll try and do it in the middle of the summer before the budgets come around, so you can talk to people, ask questions. We'll have a couple seminars at that time. We'll just question and answer. And I do know that Kelly Soto is hoping to get together some roundtables next year as far as board members from similar sized associations that can kind of talk about questions and problems that pop up. So she might be contacting some of you. Brian Kavanaugh did help us out on the question for Becky that board members stay until the replacements are found, and that is what we really do like to do that. That's usually the way it is, and we talked a little bit about that earlier. I think Chad did, but we'll have to see legally what answer that question for Becky. So Chad, are we good?
Yeah, thanks everybody for attending.
All right. Thank you all. We got you out of here in record time. Thank you all for coming out, and we will talk to you soon. But find us if you need us, and good luck with your annual meetings. And I really think it's going to be a good year this year. We're going to be able to get out and see everybody. Take care.